I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're taking a look at Christian education. It is a profound journey that has shaped lives and communities throughout history. In a powerful book called The Choice to Exceed Our Christian Education, Dr. Clara Ushman dives deep into the origins, evolution, and the enduring mission of Christian education, exploring its past successes, its present challenges, and future possibilities. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you, Logan. I'm glad to be here.
Let's start out a little bit talking about Christian education itself and how it initially began and what its original purpose was.
Um, well, I know we can't go back the whole 2000 years. We don't have that much time.
I guess
But
it did begin with Jesus, right? He was
right,
the
right.
teacher.
But initially, the I kind of start off with, Jesus had his followers, that people that he called, and at the time they probably didn't know what was going to become of it. As far as we know, Jesus's ministry only lasted 3 years. But when you think about the impact that we're still having on it today, that 3 years seems very small for such a huge development. But we know throughout history that Christianity has suffered a lot of prosecutions. There's been martyrs, there's been saints, and for standing up for what they believe. And unfortunately, even in today's world, you still hear stories of horrible situations where the last thing a person is known to do is to be praying or, anything reaching out for a higher call, which is what we would prefer. But my book was actually written before the pandemic, when everything shut down for 2 whole years, and that included, church and Bible studies, and kind of put Christian education and just about everything else on the back burner for a little bit.
Right.
And I feel like now we're just starting to get back to, okay, hey, we're back in church again, but do I need to be coming just because my kids are going and I don't want to, or my parents are making me? But I feel like we need to get more back and in depth and involved. And my book asks a lot of open-ended questions about, what are we doing now to see where Christianity is going to be 10 years from now, 50 years from now, or even 100 years from now? Um, in a perfect world, I would love to be here 100 years from now and see the answer to that
Yeah,
question, but I don't know if technology's gotten that good yet.
exactly.
But I don't really answer a lot of them. That's kind of the whole point of the book. I want the person reading it to reflect on their own thoughts.
Who's your target audience for the book?
Initially, I really didn't have one. I actually didn't even know that I was going to be making this into a book, to be completely
Right.
honest. The whole thing became my dissertation paper for my
Mhm.
doctorate degree. And that took almost 2 years of research and questions. And
Mhm.
I had a professor that said, you might really want to consider getting this published. So this book is my first rodeo with book publishing.
Right.
And, right now I'm like, I don't have a target audience. I just want to see how it does.
Right. Well, I think it's of interest to anyone who has an interest in Christian education and promoting Christian values and looking at how, it's currently taught,
Yes.
and what can be improved and what the problems are. And like you said, you pose a lot of open-ended questions that'll have people come up with their own ideas and their own input. So it kind of makes it interactive, which I think is wonderful as well. In what ways has Christian education evolved over the years from your research?
Well, I still think we have a long ways to go, but I also believe that a lot of times with scripture, the fact that, like I said, this was 2024 years ago now, but it's still having an impact today. And obviously, there's been a lot of changes. I mean, we don't live in that time frame. We don't live in that kind of world. But one big thing that we have that they didn't is technology. I really do believe that that has definitely enhanced because we can reach out further in our own community. We can reach out further in other, third world countries that really need that support.
Right.
And
Right.
one of the things that I do talk about is everything for me comes down to communication. And I know that seems pretty generic, but I even say in there, everybody's heard the two things you don't talk about are religion and politics. Well, if you don't talk about them, how is anything going to evolve or how is anything going to change? I'm
Right.
not saying everything has to come down to, Christian World War 25 or anything, but it's just, you know, they had the communication back then of word of mouth. And look how far that spread. And I feel like today, we're so technology dependent, like you can't even talk to the person sitting across the table from you. And, how is that going to impact your religion if you can't even speak to the person sitting next to you?
Right. Right. There's a downside where people don't talk to each other when they're sitting across from each other. They text or whatever instead. But what about using technology as a force to spread Christianity and Christian education? How do you view that?
Um, I definitely am very big on supporting missionaries.
Right.
But I also do support that there's a lot of people right here in our own backyard that need that extra, you know, hey, come with me to church on Sunday or come with me to this Bible study on Thursday night or whatever it may be. A lot of, for me, again, there's that communication as opposed to, well, I'm just going to email you this article that I want you to read or this section of scripture that I want you to read. No, I would rather do the personal invitation. I'm old fashioned that way. Say, I want you to come back in. And, why did you leave in the first place? What's stopping you from continuing what you already know? And I'm not saying you have to go back to school and get all the degrees that I did, but you can ask your own questions and you're always on a faith journey whether you realize it or not. I mean, even people that have stepped away for 20, 30 years, I mean, you're still a person, you're still there. You're still on that journey whether you acknowledge it or not. And that in some ways technology can be helpful.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your journey. This was your dissertation. Do you work now in Christian education? Tell us a little bit about your background and your goals.
I'm not going to reveal my age, so I'm not going to tell you when it all started. But actually, I grew up in a split religion family.
Hmm.
So this has been lifelong for me. My mother's Lutheran and my father's Catholic. So we had
It's
the
not
Catholic
such a big
Protestant
split.
household.
That's not such a
Yes,
huge split, right?
it is. Yes.
Yeah.
So dad and very Catholic. His family not so much into religion, but my mom and her whole family very hardcore Lutheran.
Yeah.
And just, there that made a lot of debates, let me tell you.
I'm
So,
sure.
yeah. So for the longest time, actually, growing up, I was attending Lutheran service and Catholic Mass every single Sunday.
That's tough.
And so, yeah, anytime I heard one of my classmates like, I hate going to church, buddy, you have no idea.
You only know the half of it.
Right, you have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
by the time I graduated high school and went on to college, I was definitely one of those, teenagers like, I am out of my parents' house. I am sleeping in on Sundays. I am not doing this anymore. I
right.
can't stand it. And you can imagine that didn't last too long.
Right.
And again, that semester, a couple friends that I had already made in the dorm, personal invitation, said, you should come to our student masses. You should come on our retreats. You should see what you think about it. No, I'm so sick of this stuff. No, you should really come. I guess you could say the rest was history from there.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You've
So
even pursued your doctorate in divinity. What's your doctorate in?
my master's and my doctorate are both religious education.
Gotcha. Are you working
Yeah.
in religious education now?
Well, during the day, I do social work.
Mhm.
So I get to talk to a lot of families that are really in need.
Yeah.
And professionally, I'm doing whatever I can, with state or federal assistance. But for me, it's rewarding because I can relate to them on a spiritual level too. Sometimes when they share their story about what they've been going through.
Sure.
And I attribute that to my, past life. I was 6 years as a hospital chaplain. So
Mm.
I have heard everything you can possibly think of, good, bad, just tragic.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of faith being tested, a lot of faith being rewarded, and then a lot of just plain turning your back.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's fascinating. You've had a very interesting life. You're able to do God's work, no doubt, by working with the people in the social services and your social work profession right now. And being a, hospital chaplain must have been quite a harrowing experience at times. I know that when you lose someone, you're very, very blessed to see that chaplain there. You're glad to have someone to pray with at times. What's your hope for this book? What do you hope people take away from it? What's your vision for it?
I want people to ask those questions, kind of like I said a minute ago.
Yeah.
I want them to think, particularly in their own life, their own family, what am I doing right now? Or what's stopping me? What is my biggest roadblock? I've heard it said, for me, or I've heard in the past, well, Sunday is the day of rest. You're supposed to sleep. So I attend, Saint Sleeper of the Mattress as my church.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's a good one. Okay. But anyway, hey, they were being honest. What can I
Yeah,
say? But
exactly.
like I said, I didn't expect it to be a book initially. So it's already out on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I've already been to a couple book fairs and talked to quite a few people, and so far it's being pretty well received. So like I said, there's no specific target audience. It's only been out since July, so I want to feel like we're still just kind of getting started and just kind of see where it goes from there.
Well, I think it's a great addition to any home, any church, any Christian library, anybody who's interested in finding out about Christianity and Christian education and how they can reinforce it, how they can make it better, how they can build it for the future. The name of the book is The Choice to Exceed Our Christian Education. It is a wonderful read. It is a powerful book. It is well researched. It is well documented, and it dives deep into the origins, evolution, and the enduring mission of Christian education, exploring its past successes, present challenges, and future possibilities. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Wonderful work on this book and this interview. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.